Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I hope all of you are doing well today. So in this video I am going to finally be doing an update about Jesus Malverde now that I'm, I guess, officially working with him now. So I got some very interesting information and it's a little bit different than anything I've ever heard anyone else say about him. So it may seem a little strange to some people. Once again, as always, this is unverified personal gnosis. But I'm happy to be sharing it with all of you today. So just tell me what you think about it down in the comments. So the first time I felt this energy was actually at a metaphysical shop, and the person who owned the shop was actually a devotee of Jesus Malverde. And so I was in the shop and I felt a very strong energy. It definitely felt masculine. It felt very intense. It felt almost familiar, but there was an element about it that felt unfamiliar, but it felt like it definitely felt masculine. It felt a bit fiery. It made my body feel very, very warm, and I remember it felt very filled with passion, a very passionate, fiery, masculine energy. That was the first time I felt energy of his, which later on it was verified that that was his energy I was feeling. And that same day, I think I bought a statue of him, if not the next time I went back to the shop. I think the first mental image that came of him was him standing on a hill in a white t-shirt with a mustache, and he had the sun shining behind him, like rays of light behind him. And not too long after that, I went ahead and I reached out to him formally. I wasn't sure how to really reach out to him since I'm not really a devotee of his. I mean, I knew of him, I've done research about him, I did a video about him, but I hadn't really looked up prayers or specific rituals for reaching out to him. There seems to be more of a standard way for reaching out to Santa Muerte, but with him it seems like there's kind of contradicting ways. They all involve prayer really, but none of them seem to be the right way. So I did it in my own way. So what I did was I used some sigils from VK Jehannum's website. He's also known as Vidian. I will put a link in the description below to the sigils that I used. So basically I put his statue and I put some candles on either side of him, and I used the sigils that were on the website and I meditated on them while chanting his name several times, and then I formally asked if I could connect to him, and it seemed to work because I was able to channel some information. It was a very small channeling session. I just really wanted to made sure that I made contact with him because I was really eager to make contact with him, and apparently he wanted to make contact with me because he saw something in me, or I don't know what. So when I did that, he gave me some personal information that there's not really a reason for me to share that, but he did also tell me a little bit about himself. I did ask him what he looks like because I was curious if all these depictions of him actually resembled him at all, and he did give me an answer for that. And I actually have it written down. I asked him, what do you look like? And he said he's 5'9" with black hair. His hair is straight and it's usually combed back. His eyes are brown, his skin is a brown color, but his skin is like a light to tan brown color. And he has full eyebrows. And he said that he has broad shoulders. He also said that he is much closer to our time than other beings, and that he also really understands the dilemmas of life. It's true that he is associated with criminal activity, and he is happy that some people see past that. So that was the little bit of information I gained from my first channeling session with him. I pretty much just kind of winged it a little bit. I used random candles that I had around the house. I did pour water in a glass next to the statue before I started the channeling session and trying to reach out to him and make contact, but it seems to have worked just fine. I think later on down the line I will probably buy designated candles just for him in colors that are associated with him, just to make it more of a proper thing, I guess. So what I will say is that he's been very helpful. He seems to want to give a lot of advice in regards to my personal life. Like if I'm upset with someone, he will prompt me to talk to them and like hash things out. Or if I'm feeling like I'm lacking confidence in myself, he will tell me ways or things I can do, or remind me about certain things about myself to help me kind of bolster my confidence and kind of bring it back up to like a healthy place. So he's been very helpful in regards to more like day-to-day, like, I don't want to say trivial, but just day-to-day occurrences, day-to-day happenings, things that are part of daily life. And so he did say he wanted to help me spiritually, but we haven't done anything spiritual just yet. Or at least he hasn't given me any direct spiritual advice that I can think of off the top of my head. At the moment, the only thing I can really say about his energy is that it feels warm, it feels very masculine, and it feels very passionate and like filled with a lot of energy. It feels very energetic. And I'm still having trouble recognizing his energy because there is another being I work with, and they have a very similar energetic signature, but slowly but surely I'm starting to be able to differentiate between the two of them. But for now it's a little difficult, it's a little tricky. So one thing I asked him was, do you have multiple aspects? Because I had to know, because nobody's ever discussed that before, and I was extremely curious because Santa Muerte seems to have way more aspects than anybody's even aware of, and I felt that he might have multiple aspects, so I did go ahead and ask. I said, do you have different aspects? And he said, yes, I do, which was extremely exciting to hear. So what he said was, I do have a few. I have one that is quite dark, and he resides in shadows. So there is some kind of a dark aspect of his. I don't know anything about it, that's all the information I got so far. Apparently there is some kind of dark being. I don't know if he just is a dark energy or if he does dark things, if you know what I mean. He said he has a second aspect that is very masculine and virile. So that's just, it just means kind of an aspect that's very manly, mannish, kind of brutish, kind of just maybe even wild, which I'm eager to learn more about that one as well. And he has a third one that is mystical. And that's all I said about that one. So I'm assuming the third aspect that he mentioned is one that has to do with magic and spirituality. So I'm really interested to know what kind of magic he presides over or really involves himself with, because we don't really know that much about him other than the fact that he's prayed to in folk Catholicism. So it'll be really interesting to hear what else he has to say. So, and also I don't know if he has more aspects than these. These are just three that he mentioned to me at that time. The mystical one, the dark one, and the masculine, like the very masculine one. He said his major aspect is the one that we all know him for, and in this form, which is closest to his form when he was a living human, he is a spiritual guide and one who aids and lends a hand when needed. And that's referring to what we all know him as Jesus Malverde. So when we see images of him, when people are praying to him, that's pretty much what he's referring to. He's saying that that's the one that looks the most like him when he was a living person. He's also saying that that's the one that is a spiritual guide and he helps people when they're in need. I think the fact that he's saying that his usual main aspect, the Jesus Malverde aspect, the fact that that's the one that looks closest to what it looks like as a human, makes me assume that the other three aspects, the shadowy one, the masculine one, and the spiritual one, I'm assuming those don't resemble what we know him to look like. Maybe not in the clothing, or maybe not even in the form or face. So I'm really intrigued and interested to know what the deal is with those three aspects and if there are potentially even more aspects. So I definitely have some channeling ahead of me, but I'm really excited to learn more about these other pretty much unknown aspects. For some time I've been wanting to create spiritual tools for people, maybe large paintings or images for people to use devotionally, like maybe on their altars. And I also wanted to maybe create oracle cards or oracle decks surrounding different beings so that people who work with those beings can have another tool to kind of help them connect more deeply to those beings that they're working with. And at one time I had considered maybe making an oracle deck surrounding Jesus Malverde, but because I didn't really work with him like that, I didn't really feel like I knew that much about him to create a whole deck surrounding him. But I did mention that if I did consider doing that later on down the line, would that be okay with him? And he said that he would love something like that, that it would really show others more facets of himself, and that he would be really happy being represented through a new lens. That it would be a huge undertaking, and that he'd be really happy if it came to pass. So earlier he said in the first channeling session that he was happy whenever he was viewed as being more than simply a narco saint, because yes, he is involved with that, but there's a lot more to him than that. So he's happy when people see past that and see the many layers there are to him. And here he's saying that he'd be happy to be represented through a new lens, and he would be really happy for others to see more facets of himself. So he seems like someone who's really interested in expanding who he is and how he's represented, like, globally on a larger scale, because we all associate him with the cartel. We always see him with images of like guns and like marijuana leaves and things like that, but there's clearly much more to him than that. So I think he's, in my opinion, very eager to be represented as a well-rounded spirit, not just somebody who's just involved in one thing. The way we know Santa Muerte to be involved in many different kinds of things and have many different aspects to her and different faces to her one being, with him it feels like we have a very limited scope of who he is as a spirit and as an entity. Another thing I found interesting about him was that I asked him, was it okay if I share the information that he's given me online with people? And he said that I may share it if I wish, that I may make videos and art relating to him, and that he appreciated me asking. And I thought that was interesting because with Santa Muerte, I mean, there's a lot of information available about her online, in books and blogs, in articles, pretty much anywhere you look, YouTube especially. And although I've shared a lot of information about Santa Muerte, there's also a lot of other information I've gained and learned through interactions with her and through channeling sessions that it's not my place to share publicly online. And so I thought it was interesting that he basically said I could share pretty much anything I want to. And it makes me think more on the idea that he's really eager to be represented and for people just to see more sides to him. So I'm eager to learn more about him, and I hope that in the future more people share their personal experiences about him, because I feel like I've combed YouTube pretty well looking for other people discussing him, and there's not that many people talking about him, and when they do, they don't go in great depth. They more just talk about the altar, or they just make him sound kind of maybe threatening or one-dimensional. So I'm eager to hear what other people have to say in the future. Hopefully other people will share their experiences with him. I think the last thing I want to say is that he seems to be eager to share both spiritual advice as well as life advice. Like I said, he was giving me advice relating to confidence and insecurities, advice relating to relationships, and kind of almost acting as like a counselor type of figure, a mediator. He also was talking about motivation and discipline, because I have a lot of things I'm working on, although I allow myself to get distracted or unmotivated. And he was talking about motivation and his problems with that word, because he says it's not about motivation, it's just about discipline. And that was like a whole thing, but ultimately I think he just has a lot of really good lessons and viewpoints to share, and I look forward to hearing more from him and learning more about him, so that I can deepen my relationship with him, so that I can grow as a person in my day-to-day life, and so that I can potentially help others through him, through this channel. So with that being said, if you want to learn more about Jesus Malverde and my future updates about working with him, then be sure to hit the subscribe button, because I am planning on making more videos about him going forward. I'm planning on making more videos about his different aspects when I learn about them, and I still plan on making many more videos about Santa Muerte, other saints, and other types of information relating to magic and spirituality. If you would like this video in an article form so you can read it at your own leisure, then you can head over to my Patreon, where I will post this as an article, amongst other things. And if you would like some prints or posters of Jesus Malverde, then you can head over to my Etsy shop, where I am now selling these things. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I will see all of you in the next one. Don't forget to drop a like if you liked. Take care.